The loyalty of dogs can be truly remarkable. A man who fell from a tree and broke his neck experienced this firsthand when his dog's subsequent actions left him in disbelief. Let's embark on a journey to Bahia Blanca, Argentina for our story today. Jesus Hooch, a lover of animals, had always desired to have a pet. When he met his wife, she shared his passion for animals but had a preference for a small dog or a cat as a family pet. However, when they initially got together, they lived in tiny apartments without adequate space to accommodate any pets. After falling in love, they made the decision to move in together. However, being in their 20s, they had to opt for an affordable apartment, which unfortunately did not permit pets. As they approached their late 20s and got married, they were finally able to save enough money to make a down payment on their own house. They would finally have their own yard. This meant that Jesus' childhood dream was finally able to come true. They could start to look at pets. They decided that they would move into the house and then settle in properly, and after a month or two, expand their family with an animal. While all of this was happening with Jesus and his wife in another part of the city, there was a dog that got out of her family home. She was a Labrador Retriever mix. Shortly after she got out of her home, she had some puppies. She looked after them on the streets because their mother liked humans. The puppy also learned to trust them. They would take food from those going by or get belly rubs before they ran off again. Then the puppies became old enough to look after themselves. They went in separate directions looking for food. While one of the pups was away, rescuers came and found the mother and the rest of the puppies. They took them away not knowing that another young dog was left behind all alone. The poor doggy got to the spot where his family used to be, and they were gone. His mother was checked at the shelter for a microchip, and they managed to find her family who had never stopped searching for her. The puppies all found forever, homes quickly, and people who loved them. Luckily, their mother was sweet, and so were her puppies. The other young pup was left to fend for himself. That was around the time that Jesus and his wife saw the young dog in their new neighborhood. He wasn't the type of pet that they had ever planned on getting. They hoped for a smaller pup or a cat. This Labrador mixed dog was already pretty large and would likely become even bigger, but when they called, he wagged his tail and came closer to them. He would sit politely for food and take it nicely without grabbing it. When they showed him some love, he would plop down on his back and show his tummy for scratches. They saw him for a few days while they were moving into their home, and each time they got out, he was there waiting for them. Jesus quickly fell in love with the dog, but he knew they had planned to wait for a while before getting the dog. He wanted to be respectful to his wife, but it broke his heart each time he left the dog on the street outside. One day, about a week after they had moved into the house, he was coming home from work. He had kept a sandwich with him to feed the dog when he went past, but he didn't see the dog anywhere. He drove up and down the roads where the dog normally lived, but he was nowhere to be seen. Worried and disappointed, Jesus went home. He just knew that he was going to worry about the dog all night. He got home and called his wife. She called back that she was in the backyard. He walked through the house and out the back door. To find her there, he saw his wife, but with her a surprise. She had the dog with her. He had a bow around his neck. She knew how much her husband had fallen in love with the dog, and she had too. This was their dog, and it was time that he came home, so she went to get dog supplies and a dog bed, and even more importantly, some dog shampoo. That night they gave the dog a bath and named him Tony. He finally had the forever home that he deserved. After his bath, he had a hearty and delicious meal of dog food, and then he got to sleep on his new dog bed right there inside their room. From that moment on, Tony quickly became inseparable from Jesus. He adored both of his humans, but there was just a special bond between him and the man. Jesus would describe Tony as his son, and they spoiled him like a child too. After being born on the streets and living there for months, Tony quickly settled into becoming an adored pet. He was becoming cheeky and fun. There was nothing he loved more than fetching the ball when Jesus threw it. He had soft toys that he could play with, and they took him on walks every day, the streets where he used to live. But now, knowing that he was going back to his warm home, they even got him a small swimming pool that he could swim in during the summer months. He really had it all. The only place his human mother drew the line was when she went to bed every night. Jesus would get into bed slightly earlier than she did. She still had to clean her face and to do her nighttime routine. By the time she got to their room, someone else had taken her spot in the bed. She would get there and Tony would be sprawled out next to Jesus, relaxed as can be. There were times that she was sure he thought she could just sleep on his dog, but when she told him to get out, he would comply right away. He was a great family dog and they all adored each other. It was a great family. At the same time, Jesus had to get used to being a homeowner that needed to look after his house. They now had to spend some of their free time and weekends doing chores and fixing things around the house. They had a garden to maintain and a lot more things to do than they would have to do in an apartment, but they loved every second of it. Jesus had to take a few days off from work. His wife didn't have the same time, so they couldn't go anywhere. Instead of just laying around relaxing, he decided that he would use the time to do some things that they couldn't get around to doing. He loved being around Tony all day, and to the dog, just lay with him wherever he worked. He decided that he would take on a big task. Pruning some of the trees that were in his yard, it went well. Then he got to one of the gardens in front of their house. Tony was with him. They had seen that he wouldn't run off, and they trusted him to hang out there. Jesus had cut a few branches, then disaster struck. Suddenly he felt the branches give way and he started falling. He felt a thud when he hit the ground and everything went dark around him. He was unconscious for a while, and since he was home alone, he might have laid there for a long time, but luckily his neighbors saw him when he was falling and they called the emergency services. But it was what Tony the dog did that was really shocking. When Jesus woke up, he realized that he was on the ground. He also realized that he had a weight on top of him. Tony was laying on top of him, hugging him. The devastated dog seemed to be terrified that he was going to lose his father. The poor pup just kept pressing his body against Jesus. He never left his side. Upon the arrival of the paramedics, Jesus was fitted with a neck brace as they were concerned that he may have sustained a neck injury. Throughout the examination and treatment, his dogs remained close to him. When Jesus was lifted into the ambulance, one of his dogs, Tony, attempted to follow him in. However, due to space constraints, Tony was unable to join him, and the neighbors were summoned to take care of him until his family could return. Thankfully, Jesus' injuries were not severe. Reunited with his loyal companion and wife shortly after, the dog could visibly see that his beloved human was safe and sound. I hope you liked the video. Please give us thumbs up. Consider to share it with your friends and family. Thank you.